Hey guys, my name is Sheridan Ray. I'm a student at Oklahoma State University. I'm a senior, about to graduate, super excited about that. Today I'm going to be talking to you about our most recent assignment, which is the play biography assignment. And that's where we're kind of talking about someone who grew up outside of the United States, in a different country, and what that was like. So today I'm going to be talking to you about Alicia Cook. Alicia and her husband are on the pastoral staff at our church and have been so for about, I think, 6 years now. I met Alicia when I was 15 years old when her and her family came down for a conference at our church. That conference was to kind of honor and support local missionaries and pastors who have been outside of the country for some time. And so she was actually there honoring her father, who is a missionary and has been so for her whole life. She's a mom of 2 girls and works for the city of Wasso, and she's also been my mentor for the past 4 years. So a little bit about her family background. She was born in Mississippi on January 13th, 1981. She was born to 2 parents, like I kind of talked about. They were missionaries, pastors. They had a heart to build churches in the places that they went. They felt called to more impoverished cities that really didn't have the resources to build churches. She has a brother named Josh, who we'll talk a little bit about. And over the course of her childhood, she actually lived in 3 different countries. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Guatemala, Panama, and Venezuela today. So first, we're going to talk about the environments of these countries. So when she was about 6 weeks old, she moved to Quetzaltenango, Guatemala. Her parents actually wanted to have her there, but because people were kidnapping infants from hospitals, they waited and had her in the States and then moved when she was 6 weeks old. It's the 2nd largest city in Guatemala. It's known for its cooler climates compared to the other cities. Super beautiful, mountains all around, even some volcanoes in there, I think, but overall just a really pretty place. However, when they moved there, it was really dangerous. The Guatemalan Civil War was still happening, which didn't end until 1996. There was also guerrilla warfare. And when I say that, I don't mean the animal, I mean the soldier. And so there were guerrilla soldiers who were kind of like rebels, who were just kind of wreaking havoc in the towns, kind of raising hell. It wasn't rare to kind of rope in the children to that as well. She said she remembers seeing kids with machine guns walking around every now and then, which was really odd for her being so young. In 1989, Operation Just Cause happened, which was underneath President Bush, I believe, and that was when the U.S. troops came and infiltrated Guatemala because of the Civil War. And she said that was a very dangerous year. Kids weren't really allowed to go outside. She and her brother stayed inside most of the time, and she said they kind of just had to make up games, kind of forts, whatever they could think of to entertain themselves. After about a year and 3 months, they moved to Panama, and stayed there until she was 13. Panama is a little warmer in climate compared to Guatemala. Both are still warm. But she said it was surrounded by just beautiful bodies of water, so there was a breeze blowing through at all times. This environment economically was better than Guatemala, but she said the neighborhood she lived in was super impoverished, and she said it was just kind of dangerous too. Shortly after they moved here, Manuel Noriega fell into leadership, and kind of like Guatemala, the country just became divided, and there was just a lot of street fights out there, a lot of chaos, and it kind of continued so until they left. When she was about 13, her family moved to Maracay, Venezuela, which was much nicer, especially at that time, than Panama. The climate was warm here, just like the others, and there were mountain and hills surrounding the city, if you can see. She grew up in a really beautiful neighborhood. So because the petroleum business was doing so well in Venezuela, a lot more people were wealthy at that time and were able to make money. So her father got to make good money for the first time. They were wealthy, they had a nice house, her neighborhood was nice. She got to kind of go wherever she pleased. She went shopping in the city with friends a lot. She had a lot more independence, got to hang out in the community a lot more. her church community got to do a lot together, which she said was a really great experience. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the context of play in each of these countries. In Guatemala, she was only a year old, and so she said the first year of her life, her parents were taking language classes, and so they were gone out of the house a lot, which was kind of hard. And so they had a nanny that was Spanish, and that stayed with them during that time. And so her first words were actually Spanish, not English. They didn't have much money for toys. Alicia said she remembered any toys they did have. They were hand-me-downs or handmade, but she said she really loved stuffed animals and dolls and liked to collect those. Due to the dangers of Guatemala, they got to play outside, but they couldn't really go far. They kind of had to stay around the house, and so they kind of had to make do with what they could around their house. And especially in the year 1989, they just couldn't go a lot of places. So the overall representation of play in Guatemala was very carefree in nature. Families really did let their kids play when it was appropriate and when it was safe. Kids did like to wander around and be outside just because of the climate. So she said it really was carefree in nature. However, Panama was very opposite. She said they were really strict and minimal about the play. Parents and teachers were not as encouraging and condoning about play in certain environments. And they didn't really take the time to interact. She said that a lot of parents had to work, and even some of the kids had to work. And so there really wasn't an emphasis on play there like there was in Guatemala. During that time, her father was actually convicted of stealing from their church. And so they lost a lot of friends and family during that time. And so she remembers in Panama just playing with her brother Josh a lot and not having a lot of friends. The situation got so bad that her mother had to take her and her brother back to the U.S. because her father was detained by the government and questioned for 3 months. So they couldn't see her father for 3 months. It was really stressful. She looks back on that and said it was a really hard time for her family. But after 3 months, he was proven not guilty, so they got to come back. In Venezuela, she got there when she was 13, so she didn't really do a lot of playing there. She was kind of a preteen. She kind of got a little bit more of independence, like I talked about. The weather was always nice, and she spent a lot of time outside. She got to go to a small school there, out of their church. She had a lot of friends. She said if they did ever play, they liked to make skits and plays that they would get to perform for people. According to Alicia, she really wishes she actually would have spent most of her childhood in Venezuela just because it was a better experience. She thinks that she probably would have had some better memories if she would have grown up her full time in Venezuela. So her overall description of play, she said she spent a lot of her childhood playing with her brother. Kind of like I talked about, it was kind of hard in Guatemala and Panama for them to make friends, especially with being homeschooled. They got to play all throughout the day since they were homeschooled. There was never really a scheduled time. They kind of had free reign to play whenever they weren't doing their homework, whether that be morning or night. Alicia said she never remembers asking for toys a lot because they weren't really wealthy until she was older. But when she did get toys for her birthday, like I said, she really liked dolls. She really liked stuffed animals. Because all the places they lived in were warmer climates, she said really a lot of her play was outside. She got really tan. However, she had really bright blue eyes, so she said wherever they went, she was tan like the other kids, but her eyes were so blue that people would stop and ask to take, pictures with her or just stop to ask about her. So she said that was really interesting as a kid, being so different from all the other children. I'm going to talk a little bit about the reflection of her play. Because of the position her parents were in as missionaries, she said they were really busy and committed to the community a lot of the time, which was really hard for her as a kid. While they really supported her in playing and never kept her from that, they weren't really around to play with her and her brother a lot. She said that was kind of difficult. Alicia experienced a very subsistence culture, like it talks about in our Let Them Play book, where parents just aren't really around to kind of contribute to that experience of play. while she really loved traveling to the different countries, the job of her dad being a missionary just really affected her emotionally, physically, and cognitively. And it talks about a little bit in our book how that can affect the brain, that stress and that trauma, especially when he had to leave or when they had to leave for 3 months. That really was a traumatic experience for her to not see her father for 3 months and not know if he was okay. Overall, she said she doesn't regret that her parents were missionaries, but that there really were some hard experiences through that, and she wished that she could have changed some circumstances within that. Overall, I really enjoyed this process of getting to interview her. Her story is very unique and interesting. It opened my eyes to a lot of different cultures, especially since they're all in South America, but they were all so different. My childhood was definitely different than hers. And kind of like it says, we have some similarities. I was actually the youngest child. My parents are also pastors. I do play a lot with dolls, or I don't still play with them. I did play with them and stuffed animals. I played a lot outside, and I actually went to Central America and South America when I was 10 for a missions trip with my family. But we also have a lot of differences, of course, as well. I had 2 older sisters growing up. I didn't have a brother. I grew up in the United States. My neighborhood was really nice and safe. I went to a private school. I had a lot of friends I played with at school and away from school. Our government was safe, and the leadership within that was safe. And my parents were also very involved in my playtime, and I was very fortunate to have a stay-at-home mom who took the time to play with us and educate us. So actually in the future, I'm going to be studying play therapy. I want to get my master's after this. So this is actually a really great assignment and great class for me to study, because it really, I think, helps equip me for what I want to do. And so studying and learning the cultures that are different than mine can really help me get outside of my own experiences and into someone else's world. And I think with play therapy, you don't always know the background of the child or their culture. And so kind of having to be sensitive to that is super important. And also, not all play is the same. Learning different kinds of play and the factors within that can help me understand the progress of a child's physical, emotional, and cognitive development. And also, having this knowledge can help me be more relatable and understanding just as a person and as a play therapist. I think it's super important just to have an open perspective and to be open to the people that you're going to come in contact with. So that was my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much.